Welcome to the HMO Property Show. By investors, for investors. Catch us weekly as we discuss all things cash flow positive property investing. Whether you're a seasoned investor, a new landlord, or just curious about property investing, this is the podcast for you. Sponsored by the Co-Living Collective, your trusted partner in creating vibrant and sustainable shared living experiences. Visit us at colivingcollective.com.au to learn more.
Welcome back to the HMO Property Show. I'm your host, Neil Gibb, as always, and today I've brought something a little bit different to you. I am bringing you my top 13 books. Now, I was going to try and do top 10 books, but then I couldn't make my mind up. There was a few that I wanted to put on there. And for one of them, I'm actually giving you 2 books. So it's actually 14 books that I'm going to give you. And I've tried to put them in order of least favourite to best favourite, but it's quite hard when you're doing your top 10 or your top 14 books. So here we go. Number 14, or number 13, because we're doing the top 13, but it's 2 books, this one. So this is Robert Kiyosaki. I'm going to ease you in, nice and easy on this one. Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. What the kids teach their rich about money, that the poor and middle class do not. And also I'm going to throw in there the cash flow quadrant as well, which is the guide to financial freedom, using the cash flow quadrant of E, S, B and I. So employed, self-employed, business owner, investor. But together, them 2 books I feel should be the starting point for just about any investor. And to be fair, they probably have been the starting point for a lot of investors that I've spoken to as they begin their journey for investing. And the reason that I like it so much is because he talks about how he uses his money to invest in assets that produce cash flow, and then he lives his life off the cash flow so that he makes his money work hard for him instead of himself working hard for his money. Sound familiar? That's what HMOs are all about, right? But yeah, Robert Kiyosaki, I dare say, is probably one of the best-selling property investing or business investing or personal development books that's out there at the minute. Big fan of Robert and everything that he does. He's a little bit, what's the word? Conspiracy theorist at the minute, and I think a lot of these big players are. There'll be a few people on this list that I'm going to talk about today that they are probably a little bit conspiracy theorist as well. But I think when you get to that level, you start understanding and learning about money more and the system more and who runs the world, who runs the banks. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole just yet, guys, so don't worry too much about it. But book number 13 is Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I'm going to throw in the cash flow quadrant there so you can get 2 for 1. Read them both, keep them on your shelf, get them out every now and again. Right, number 12 is Grant Cardone, How to Get and Stay Motivated. Now, a lot of these books I have had on Audible, and then I've also bought the paperback or the hardback as well, because I like to sometimes listen to it whilst I'm reading and highlight certain bits in there as well. But I couldn't actually buy the paperback of Grant Cardone's How to Get and Stay Motivated. And it's a really good book. In the early days when I was setting goals and trying to stay focused on my goals, in the early days when I was setting goals, I still set goals now. I just don't need to be as motivated to follow them because it's become a habit now, just forming habits. But in the early days, yeah, I used to listen to this just about every year. I used to set my goals in, the back end of January, mid-February, you start to get that bit of a dip in energy. You start to lose a bit of focus off the goals that you set for the start of the year. Put your headphones in, get a bit of Grant Cardone blasting down the earlobes, and there's nothing better than an angry American screaming down your ears for 2 hours of motivational tips. It's actually a really, really good book, and he just talks about how to anchor certain things in so that you remember why you started when the times get tough. Because if you are on a journey, times are going to get tough. It's not a straight line. I don't know if you've seen that picture where it says what people think success is, and it's a straight line with a start and a finish line. And then there's the other one where it's got the roller coasters, the bad weather, the hole in the floor, the crash car, and then it's got a little victory thing at the end. That's what success is. And it's really hard sometimes to stay motivated. If it's new to you, if you've set your goals, it is easy to fall off track. So all of these books that I'm going to help you, the books that I'm going to share with you now are books that have helped me get from where I was to where I am now. And where I am now is not where I want to be. I'm going to continue to grow. I'm going to continue to read books. And in 10 years' time, I might come back with another set of books, which I've read. So, Grant Cardone, number 12. Number 11, Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference, Negotiating as if your life depended on it. I'm actually trying to get Chris on the podcast. I think he'd be a great guest. If you don't know who Chris is, he's an ex-FBI negotiator. And he used to be brought in to negotiate with bank robbers, gang leaders, terrorists, and hostage negotiators and stuff like that. So he talks about his difference in high-stake negotiations, or his experience in high-stake negotiations. And he reveals the 9 key principles that help Chris Voss and his colleagues succeed where it matters the most. Now, I've actually used some of the things in this book and went out and secured property deals off the back of it as well. So it's a really, really good book, very practical, with tips at the end and what you can actually do to go out there and negotiate on certain things. Quick drink. Number 10. Now, this one has sold over 50 million copies, so there's a good chance you could have heard of it. It's Stephen R. Covey, and it's the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Now, I'm going to tell you a little claim to fame here. My business partner, Troy Felt, apparently this guy is his uncle. Apparently so. I'll have to confirm that with Troy. But Troy, if you're listening, let me know if it was. He's either his uncle or his cousin, or he's some relation, because Troy's American, Stephen R. Covey's American. But the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, again, is a very, very, very good book. I'll quickly run through the habits with you, but I won't dig too deep into them. Habit number 1, be proactive. Habit number 2, begin with the end in mind. Habit number 3, put first things first. Habit number 4, think win-win. Habit number 5, seek first to understand, then be understood. Habit number 6, synergize. And habit number 7, sharpen the saw. And this book list is going to help you sharpen the saw. I hadn't read this book I read it back in probably 2014, 2015. And there's a guy that I follow on Instagram. He's a billionaire, and he did a Ask Me Anything. And somebody asked him a question and said, if you were me now, what would you do to get started? And he said, read this book and use it. So there you go. 50 million copies sold, and a billionaire is recommending it to different people. So it's got to have some pull, really. Some real good, tangible things that you can use to get from where you are to where you want to be. Number 9. This one, if you are not in business, might not be your cup of tea. But if you are in business and you haven't read this book, I'd recommend getting it. It's Vern Harnish, and it's Scaling Up, How a Few Companies Make It and Why the Rest Don't. And it used to be called the Rockefeller Habits, but I think Vern changed it from Rockefeller Habits to Scaling Up. John D. Rockefeller was one of the richest men on the planet at one point, along with the likes of Henry D. Ford and etc., etc. I was given this book by Kim Barrett. And if you listen to episode 50, Kim Barrett was the guy who interviewed my wife and I on that episode. And Kim runs masterminds, business masterminds. And he, at every mastermind you go to, he gives you a little gift. And the gift was the book Scaling Up by Vern Harnish. And we actually had Anna Samios deliver a keynote speech at that mastermind. Again, another phenomenal powerhouse in business. If you haven't heard of her, check her out, Anna Samios. She's brilliant. But Scaling Up by Vern Harnish, it broken down into 4 different categories, and we still use the things in this book to this date within the business. So it's broken into people, strategy, execution, and cash flow. 4 different brackets there that if you're in business, you realize how important them 4 things are. And it gives you really, really good tips on how to implement, or how to use tips and tricks and strategies in them 4 different areas of business. Okay, number 8 is Steve McKnight, 0 to 130 properties in 3.5 years. So if you don't know Steve McKnight, I think he's coming on tour pretty soon. He's going to be over in Perth towards the back end of April, if I'm correct. I've actually got tickets to go to this event because I met Steve a couple of years back at a mastermind event, and I've actually just reached out to him to try and get him on the podcast too. I'll be blown away if he accepts it, but fingers crossed, eh? So Steve talks about how he went from being an accountant to buying 130 cash flow positive properties in 3.5 years and become financially free by investing in cash flow positive properties. Not once does he invest in negative lead properties. He only invests in cash flow positive stuff. Right now, the man is phenomenally successful. His cash flow is huge. If you go to an event, and Steve, he might actually tell you this. He told us before that his cash flow was close to $1 million a year from his investment portfolio, which is just staggering. And now Steve puts together investment funds for other investors to get into, and he does deals in different parts of the world. Okay. By the way, that book is quite old. I think it's to early 2000s. So, some of the properties he was buying at the prices that he was buying them at, you're probably not going to find them at them prices again. But it's still good to read and understand why and how, because, there's deals everywhere, guys. And that leads me nicely onto number 7. And the 3 authors in this book you might not have heard of. It's actually an American book, but the strategies all work the same. So the authors are Jay Scott, Mark Ferguson, and Carol Scott. And it's called The Book on Negotiating Real Estate, Expert Strategies for Getting the Best Deals When Buying and Selling Investment Properties. So again, this is another book that I've read back to front maybe 3 times and took the strategies from this book and actually gone out there and implemented the negotiation tactics. I actually read this before I read Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. But when you're in the business of real estate, you need to forget about the piece of real estate and you need to focus on the other person. There's 2 people in the transaction, the buyer and the seller. And not every buyer just wants 30 days finance, 30 days settlement, and not every seller just wants to sell the property for the highest price possible as fast as possible. Some people want extended terms, some people might want to leave money in a deal. And in this book, I actually learned about seller JVs and how to structure them. And I actually went out there and I structured a seller JV. So really, really good book. Again, it is American. So some of the things you might read in there and think, oh, that might not work, but you'd be surprised. Some of the phrases that they use in there might not be the correct wording for Australia, but you just have to adapt it, speak to a legal team, etc., and get some feedback from them guys on how to actually structure the deal with Australian law instead of American law. Number 6, this guy has had a really big influence on me in my life. I was flying back from Queensland one year. I was on a Qantas flight and I was just flicking through the things on the back of the seat on the screen. And I was just flicking through, and instead of watching a movie, I just went to the podcast section for some reason. And I came across a podcast called The Disruptive Entrepreneur by a guy called Rob Muir. And Rob Muir is probably the best way I could probably explain him is he is the Dimpner Boholt of the UK. He is he owns the UK's largest property training company called Progressive. Rob and his business partner Mark Homer are incredibly successful investors. They own something like 500 properties between them, and their business is huge, very, very successful. Lots of different training people. Again, I'm trying to get Rob on the podcast, but I don't think I get enough listeners just yet. So do me a favor, guys. Click the link, click like, click share the podcast with somebody else and try and get them on board so they listen, because the more listeners I get, the better guests that I can get on the podcast. But number 6 is Rob Muir, Money. And the title of the book is No More, Make More, Give More. Learn how to make more money and transform your life. Now, this book is English. Well, it's not English. Rob Muir is English. And he talks about money from an English sense. But the concept is all the same. You get to understand how money started, what it is, how to use it better, how to attract it, how to invest it, what things not to do with it. It's a really, really good book. It's a big book. Again, you can get it on Audible, and Rob narrates it on Audible as well, which is really good. He's also just recently brought out another book called Money Matrix, which I feel is the follow-on from Money. And he's talking about the banking system and essentially how we live in a matrix. And if you've seen the film The Matrix with Keanu Reeves, then he believes that we actually live in a matrix right now, the way that everything's structured. And when I went back to Robert Kiyosaki saying that he's a conspiracy theorist about people running the world and running the banks, etc., Rob's on the exact same warpath as this guy, going out there trying to educate people about what's really going on in the world. So Rob has, like I said, been a big influence in my life. In the early days, I used to put out heaps and heaps of useful free content, telling people how to build a personal brand. I started this podcast and the last podcast, the Perth Entrepreneurs Podcast, started them both off the back of the content that Rob put out there to help build a personal brand. I started using social media differently instead of letting social media use me. I started putting some content out there again, which was building a personal brand. I started helping people instead of just putting on there what I was having for my tea or what my dog was doing. Like some people do. Nothing wrong with that, guys. If that's you, go for it. But we started using social media to promote what we were doing, the style of housing we were doing, etc., etc. And social media has been an integral part of the growth of me personally, the business, and everything else that we've done here at the HMO Property Co and the Co-Living Collective. So number 6 is Rob Muir, Money. And then also, if you want to check out his new book, Money Matrix, I'm only about 2 chapters in, so I should finish it next week, I reckon. And then I can give you some feedback on that. But Rob Muir, Money and Money Matrix is his new book. Number 5 is a guy that I'm following quite a lot this year, Brendon Burchard, and the book is High Performance Habits. Now, if you don't know Brendon Burchard, again, American coach, very, very successful. I didn't used to like him, I won't lie. Didn't used to like him, and then I seen a guy called Brad Cassidy from Queensland talking about doing some one-on-one coaching with Brendon. So I thought, I'll check the book out and see what it's all about. Picked up High Performance Habits, loved it. This was probably 4 or 5 years ago. And then at the end of last year, 2023, beginning of 2024, I was looking for a new mentor. I reached out to a few people to try and gauge. I didn't really know what I wanted in a mentor, because I believe every coach and mentor takes you to the next level, and then you kind of plateau with that person. Then you need to find someone to take you to the next level. Then you might plateau with that person. Then you might need to take someone to that next level. And there was a few people that I spoke to, incredibly successful, but I didn't feel like they were the person to take me to the next level that I wanted to. And I didn't know what it was that was stopping me from taking it to that next level. But with Brendon, he talks about bringing back the joy and enjoying what you're doing, because sometimes business can be quite intense. It can take a lot of the joy away from what you're trying to do. My business partner Troy always says to me, let's enjoy the journey, man. Let's all these things that are going on out there right now. It's great, but make sure that you're enjoying the journey right now. And Brendon also brings it back to this. And to be a high performer, Brendon says that his high performance habits are: you must seek clarity, generate energy, raise necessity, increase productivity, develop influence, and demonstrate courage. Again, I won't dig into them too deep. If you actually go to Brendon's podcast, which used to be called High Performance Habits, I think if you go to season 4 or episode 4, he actually gives you the book in that podcast for free. So you don't even need to buy it. You can go on your podcast app and just get straight in there and listen to the full book from start to finish. Great book. Off the back of that, I reread it in between Christmas and New Year again, because when I was looking for a new mentor, an ad came up on my phone, Brendon Burchard, and he said a few things, and I was just like, maybe I'm going to look into this. And I did. I picked the book back up, probably read it in about 5 or 6 days, and then that was me. I signed up to Growth Day. I'm doing some of the stuff inside his platform there, which is really, really good. And I bought his high performance planner, which again has been really good. I found myself journaling quite a lot this year, and I used to turn my nose up at it a little bit. Why do I want to write stuff? It's actually really helping. It's quite good to get the thought out of your mind down on paper, especially before you go into bed. I've started downloading what's happened during the day and the things that I'm looking forward to the next day. And one thing, again, this has come from Brendon, I've been practicing gratitude quite a lot lately as well, because as my business partner Troy said, we want to enjoy the journey. So I'm constantly reminding myself of little things throughout the day that I'm really, really grateful for. So Brendon Burchard, High Performance Habits: seek clarity, generate energy, raise necessity, increase productivity, develop influence, and demonstrate courage. There you go. Okay, getting into the top 4 now. This was quite hard to try and get these 4 into a specific order. Number 1 was easy, but to get 2, 3, and 4 into the correct order was tricky. So number 4 is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, a memoir by the creator of Nike. So incredible book of the journey of a man who is now at the helm of probably one of the biggest brands on the planet. I dare say that. If you don't like reading books, I recommend you at least watch the movie. There's a movie called Air, which is Nike Air. I think it's on one of them, Prime, Netflix, whatever. It took me a while to find it. Might be on Apple TV. And it talks about more the journey of Michael Jordan, but it talks about Nike in the early days and stuff like that, how they signed Michael Jordan up, how Michael Jordan's mother was influential in structuring the deal between Nike and Michael, and how now Michael creates more money every single year just by Nike selling clothes with his name on it than he did do during his full NBA basketball career. Phenomenal story. And if he's making that much money, how much is Phil Knight making if he owns the company? So Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, the memoirs by the creator of Nike. Incredible book. If you don't like reading, watch the documentary or the movie and you will thoroughly enjoy it. Okay, top 3. Probably should have a drum roll. Top 3. Rob Muir makes it into the top 3 again with a book called Life Leverage: How to Get More Done in Less Time, Outsource Everything and Create Your Ideal Mobile Lifestyle. And as I was trying to jostle these ones into the top there, I was thinking, God, I haven't put Tim Ferriss in, the 4-Hour Work Week. But I actually feel like this is a better book than the 4-Hour Work Week. In fact, the 4-Hour Work Week never even made my top 10. Rob Muir, again, I feel I just connect with him because he's English. The podcast that I did listen to on the aeroplane was talking about him and his business partner's journey from starting out. He was in debt. He did a few deals. He partnered with somebody. Fast forward now, multi-millionaire, really well. But he talks about how to leverage things out, how to work out what to delegate and what to do yourself so that you can free up more time and live a life of clarity and purpose and merge your passion and your profession. I did this, and ever since I've read this book, I've never washed my own clothes. I've never ironed my own clothes. I've never cleaned my own house. I've never done my own garden. And I think I've had an EA or a PA that's been supporting me in this journey ever since reading this book. Incredible book. I don't want you to think I'm a bit of a dickhead there, a bit of a diva, outsourcing everything. But when you read the book, you'll understand why I've got rid of all them things. Them things I do not like doing. Them things I do not want to finish a hard day's work and then get in there and start doing all of them things. So I would rather... Start again, Mr. Gibb. I would rather work an extra hour at work to cover the income required to outsource them things. And then I get in, my house is clean, my shirts are ironed. I used to get someone to cook my food at one point, but I actually don't mind cooking nowadays. But yeah, Rob is responsible again for all this. Like I say, he's had a massive impact on my life. I've never actually met him personally, and I've never actually done any of his paid courses. I've only ever listened to his social media, and I've only ever read his books, and I've got all of this stuff from him. But so Rob Muir, Life Leverage. We are now into the top 2. Just going to move this down. This one is by an author called Ashley Vance, and the book is called Elon Musk: How the Billionaire CEO of SpaceX and Tesla is Shaping Our Future. Now, I don't really think I need to give you an introduction on Mr. Musk, but I will. So he is potentially, alongside Mr. Bezos there, you know, them two kind of are jostling for the richest person on the planet at the minute. But I believe that Elon Musk will go down as one of the greatest inventors of our time, in line with the likes of Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla, all of these other crazy inventors, Einstein. I think he'll go down as one of the greatest ever because the man is just phenomenal. He's now the CEO of something like $5 billion companies, and he's got 11 kids, and he just wants to move people to Mars so we can live on Mars. How big do your goals need to get? How many people laughed at him when he said, I think I'm going to get people on Mars? How many people laughed at him when he said he was going to start PayPal? How many people laughed at him when he said he was going to get into SpaceX and take over NASA? And then invest in Tesla, and just now you see Tesla's just about every third car you see on the road is a Tesla. The man is an absolute genius, and it all started with he started PayPal, which eBay acquired for 1.5 billion in 2002. And once eBay acquired it, they actually kicked Elon out as CEO. And that's when he went out and started getting involved in the likes of SpaceX, Tesla, etc., etc. I think he's got a company called The Boring Company now, and he's messing around with AI and also messing around with human, what's the word? He's trying to like slow human aging down and put microchips into people's brains and stuff like that. Next level genius and next level thought leader, next level mover and shaker in my eyes. Just incredible person. Well worth a read. There's a Netflix on documentary about Elon, which is really good. Which it kind of tells you it's more about the SpaceX than Tesla and PayPal, but it's even worth watching just to see what he did with SpaceX, because to be fair, it's absolutely phenomenal. And here we go, guys. Number 1. What do you think it is? Obviously, I can't hear you as you are shouting now down your headphones or at your stereo in your car. But it is number 1, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Total Recall, my unbelievably true life story. Now, the reason that I like this book is that Arnold proves that there literally are no barriers. And he also proves that if you set goals and work towards them, anything is achievable. He became the best bodybuilder in the world. He was Mr. Universe by the age of 21 or something like that. Crowned the greatest bodybuilder in the world. He then wanted to get into movies. He got laughed at for years because everybody said his body was too big and his accent was too stupid. But then he ended up into the Terminator movie, and it became one of the biggest movies of all time. So he then went on to do Predator, Total Recall, True Lies, Twins, which is the movie that the actors made the most money from ever, because the actors, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito, actually struck a deal with the director, which was it Steven Spielberg or was it the guy? Oh God, I can't remember his name now, but they struck a deal with him that they got a percentage of the profit from the property, and they made a shitload of money from this, just from that one movie. And then once he kind of dominated the movie scene, he then got into politics. He actually married into the Kennedy family by marrying Maria Shriver, and then he became the governor of California, and he went on to just transform that state altogether. And by the way, he grew up in a small little town in Austria, and he just went on to do all of them things. So inspiring, humbling, incredible. Again, if you're not a big reader of books, is a documentary on Netflix. Basically covers the books, and it covers it in them 3 states: bodybuilding, movie star, governor. Absolutely phenomenal career. The man is an absolute animal. If you listen to the way that he talks in that documentary as well, absolutely staggering. He talks about visions and how he used to lie in bed and vision certain things. And when he tried to become a movie star and people kept saying, your body's too big, your accent's too stupid, and someone said to him, why didn't you give up? And he said, because that wasn't part of my vision. Wow. Incredible. He just kept going and kept going and kept going and became the highest paid movie star of all time. I think he is. Phenomenal. So there you go. Arnold Schwarzenegger is my number 1 book. Total Recall, my unbelievably true life story. I'm going to quickly run back through these in backwards order. What's the word there? So number 13/14, Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad and the Cash Flow Quadrant. Number 12, Grant Cardone, How to Get and Stay Motivated. Number 11, Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. Number 10, Stephen R. Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Number 9, Vern, Harnish, Scaling Up. Number 8, Steve McKnight, 0 to 130 properties in 3.5 years. Number 7, Jay Scott, Mark Ferguson and Carol Scott, the book on negotiating real estate. Number 6, Rob Muir, Money. And just for a little bonus, I've chucked in Money Matrix, which is his new book. Number 5, Brendon Burchard, High Performance Habits. Number 4, Phil Knight and Shoe Dog. Number 3, Mr. Rob Muir and Life Leverage. Number 2, Ashley Vance, Elon Musk, How the Billionaire CEO of SpaceX and Tesla is Shaping Our Future. And number 1, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Total Recall, My Unbelievably True Life Story. I'm going to finish off with my little tagline. Every master was once a disaster, and every winner was once a beginner.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you tune in the same time next week so you can stay up to date with all cash flow positive property updates.